Examples of reference. Reference is something concrete. Variable reference. What does it mean? It means the same expression can have different reference. And we have the first expression here, the present prime minister. And according to the time, it can be a different reference or a different person. For example, used in Britain in 1944 is Mr. Churchill or was Mr. Churchill. And in 1982 is Mrs. Thatcher, Margaret Thatcher, or was Margaret Thatcher. Another example we have here is another expression, the president of Brazil. So it can vary according to the circumstances, times, place, etc. So, more examples here. The present president is the expression. Let's see, 1997 in Portugal, Jorge Sampaio. The same expression in 1997 in the US, Bill Clinton. And even the same expression again, but in this time talking about Seattle Seahawks, that is an American football team, Chuck Arnold. And the same expression of a business company could be anyone, different names. Okay, here we have a very different or interesting example, Peter's house in the English language, and the reference, the house that belongs to Peter in the real world. And there are many Peters around the world. Another expression here we have, your right foot, and with different reference. Mom, move your right foot. Carmen, I just touched your right foot. Bob, there's something on your right foot. Okay, let's continue with more examples. In this case, the expression or the word is orange. And the examples, I like oranges. This orange is really big. My favorite color is orange. And in the second place, we have plane. That is the expression or reference. I like to be able to know how to fly a plane. The plane crashed during takeoff. And the third one, we have lions. The lions that I saw in the zoo were sleeping. Lions in zoos look unhappy. And now we have constant reference that, on the other hand, never refers to different themes. For example, the sun is going to be the same all the time. And the expression, look at the sun. When people say this, they're talking about the same thing. We have now the moon. The moon is a natural satellite. So people on Earth talk about the same thing. And finally, the FIFA. FIFA is an association founded in 1904 based in Zurich. So when we talk about the FIFA, we talk about the same thing all the time.
The truth is known through the relationship of the propositions. The propositions are sentences with true, false, or unknown value, so the truth is conditional depending on some parameters as the content or the connectives of the propositions. The logic is an attempt to find valid principles of argument and inference. For example, if humans are mortal and Socrates is human, then Socrates is mortal. If the two premises are true, then the conclusion is true. Different if the first proposition is false, then the conclusion is false. Depending on its logical structure, a proposition can be a tautology, where the proposition is always true, as smart people are smart, where the proposition is true but does not propose new information. A contradiction, where the proposition is necessarily false, for example, I am not myself. A preposis, where the second proposition is assumed because the first one, for example, the king of pop is dead, so I assume that there was a king of pop. An entails depends on the value of truth of the propositions, and basically said that if we know the first proposition, then we know the second one. For example, if the man steals money from the old woman, then the old woman does not have money. The value of truth of the relationship between the two propositions depends on the value of falsehood or truth and the order of the propositions. The entailment relations can be paraphrased where P entails Q and Q entails P. For example, Maria hates Jose entails Jose is hated by Maria. A contradiction when P is positive and the second proposition or Q is the first proposition but negative or opposed. For example, Anna is eating and Anna is not eating. There is a contradiction. And finally, an inclusion is when a hyponymy propositional relation, for example, Lulu is a dog, and we know that dogs are animals, so Lulu is an animal. The connectives also influence the truth of value of a proposition. The most common connectives are the conjunction, the disjunction, the implication, the negation, and the equivalence. Let's see some more examples. When we use a conjunction, depending on the truth or falsehood value of the proposition, the conjunction relation and can be true or false. If at least one of the propositions is false, then the relation is also false. In the case of the disjunction, or if at least one of the propositions are true, the disjunction relation is true. The disjunction proposition is true if at least one of the presidents raised the IVA. In the implication relation, only if the first proposition is true and the second one is false, the implication relation is false. In the negation, assuming the proposition is true, then its negation if false, and if the proposition is false, then its negation is true. For example, if Peter is a man and that is true, then when we say Peter is not a man, that is false. The final relation is the equivalence where only if both propositions are true or false. The equivalence relation is true. When I say Elsa is a woman, if she is a female, if they are both true or false, they are true. And otherwise, the equivalence relation is false.